Chapter 4. Friday, October 17, 1913.
By the time we had reached the Horn where we were charged to leave our poor sister, now so blessed, we were aware of another mission allotted to us. We were bidden to go to another district farther to the east. You again hesitate, but that is the word we want. By the east we mean the direction from which the brighter light is seen over the mountains which border the plain where the vision of the Christ and the cross had been given to us. We often speak of that direction as the east, because it reminds us of the sunrise. We set off, the 5 of us, all women, and kept before us the description we had received, of the place we were to seek. We were to look for a great city among the mountains, with a golden dome in the midst of it, and the city itself surrounded by a colonnade on a terrace, which ran round the city on all sides. We walked over the plain, and then went through the air, which requires more exertion, but is more speedy, and, in a case like ours, more convenient in enabling us to get a view of the country. We sighted the city, and descended before the principal gateway, by which we entered the main thoroughfare. It ran straight through the city, and emerged through another gateway on the other side. On each side of this broad street, there were large houses, or palaces, in spacious grounds, the residences of the principal officials of that district, of which the city itself was the capital. As we came towards the city, we had seen people working in the fields, and also many buildings, evidently not residences, but erected for some useful purpose. And now that we were within the city walls, we saw the perfection of both buildings and horticulture. For each building had a typical garden to match it, both in color and design. We passed on, waiting for some sign as to our destination and mission, for on such occasions as this, a message is always sent on ahead, so that the visitors are expected. When we had gone some way, we entered a large square, where beautiful trees grew on lawns of the greenest of green grass, and fountains played a harmony together, that is to say, there were perhaps a dozen fountains, and each had a tone of its own, and each was composed of many smaller jets of water, each being a note. These are manipulated, on occasion, so that a fairly complicated piece of music can be played, with an effect such as that produced by an organ with many stops. At such times, there are large numbers of people assembled in the square, or park, as I might call it, both of the citizens, and also those who dwell outside among the hills and pastures. But when we came to it, the fountains were playing a simple series of chords, in perfect harmony, and with most pleasing effect. Here we lingered for a while, for it is exceedingly restful and beautiful. We sat and lay upon the grass, and, presently, there came towards us a man who, by the smile on his face as he approached, we knew was the one who had been expecting us. We arose and stood before him in silence, for we did not feel inclined to begin the conversation, as we saw he was an angel of some degree considerably above us.
Please describe him, and give me his name if possible.
All in good time, dear. We learn to eliminate impatience here, as a thing which confuses, without adding impetus to the matter in hand. He was tall, much taller than the average man on earth. I should say he would be some 7.5 feet high, in earth measurement. I am considerably taller than I was when with you, and he was much taller than I am. He wore a cream-colored tunic, almost to his knees, bare arms and legs, and no sandals. You see, I am answering what you are questioning in your mind. No, he had nothing on his head, but a beautiful veil of soft brown hair, parted in the middle and curling round his face and neck. One broad fillet of gold he wore, and in the center and at the sides were set 3 large blue stones. He wore a belt of silver and some pink metal mingled, and his limbs shone with a soft glow. And these points, together with others, told us of his high degree. There was also a calm benevolence, and power, in his firm but kindly countenance, which gave both peace and trustfulness to us, as we stood before him, but also induced a reverence, which we were glad to pay to one of such real worth as he. He spoke at last, quietly, modulating his voice, as we instinctively knew, to our case. We could, nevertheless, detect the reverberating power in the tone of it. He said, "My name is Cast. I am sorry. These names seem to be one of my weaknesses. They always perplex me when I try to reproduce them down here. But never mind his name for the moment. I am C, he said. You have already heard of me from your own superior, and now we meet in person. Now, my sisters 5, come with me, and I will tell you why you have been sent to this city, and to me. So we followed him, and on the way he chatted pleasantly, and we were quite at ease in his presence. He led us down an avenue at right angles to the square, and then we emerged into another square, but we saw at once that this was a private square, and that the great palace, which lay away across the parklands before and around it, was the residence of some great lord. We were guided through the park, until we approached the great building, which stood, like some Greek temple, on a plateau which had a flight of steps on all sides of it. The building was immense, and stretched before us, to right and left, and had high arches and entrances and porticos, and surmounting it was a great dome. It was the landmark we had seen when approaching the city, only we found that it was not all gold, but gold and blue. We inquired who lived here, and he answered, "Oh, this is my home, that is, it is my city home, but I have also other houses out there in the country parts, where I go from time to visit my friends whose duties lie in those districts. Come within and you shall be given the welcome which is your due, who have come so far to see us." He spoke quite simply. I have come to know that here, simplicity is one of the marks of great power. One might have thought that the proper way to usher one into the presence of a great noble would be to send servants to lead us to the palace, and then, that he should receive us in state. But they look at things differently here. No purpose would have served in this case by such ceremony, and so it was dispensed with. In cases where ceremony is helpful or desirable, it is observed, and sometimes with much grandeur. When it has no use it is not observed. And that is how we came to the house of Castrol. Now you have his name, as well as I am able to give it, of whom more another evening. You have to go now, so good night dear, and all blessing to you and yours from these glowing and beautiful realms. Dear lad, good night.